Hello, I'm Kimberley Dondo, Digital Content Manager, and welcome to the In Conversation With series, a series where I speak to notable figures in the realm of financial services. Listen as they share their personal journeys, thoughts on the industry, and advice for aspiring advisors. Join us at Money Marketing Interactive Leads on Thursday, 11th May. Just go to Money Marketing's website to secure your seat at our industry-leading event and hear from notable figures in the industry. See you there. Today, I'm joined by Daniel Maynard. So, Daniel, if you could give a better introduction of yourself.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I've been I'm trying to think how long I've been in financial advice now for the new space I've come into. Just over a year, 1 year, 1 month, I'd say now.
Okay.
So I've had financial experience through working in a bank, but then I did the qualification with the LIBF and was grateful enough to get some opportunities to be employed and really see how does it work in this financial advice space now. So yeah, 1 year, 1 month in, and I love every moment of it.
Okay, cool. So you said that you started off working in banking. So was that straight out of school, or how did you get into it?
Interesting, actually. Yeah, I never thought I'd be working in a bank as you do when you as a young lad. As probably most young guys as well, I thought, oh, I'm going down the football route. That's my career. And turned out it wasn't. So you have to think very fast. What would I like to do next? So I started working for a friend's local business, and I gravitated towards accounting. So I thought, okay, I like the numbers side of things. As I kept looking as well, there was a role in, I think it was another company in Wilmslow, an accounts assistant. Just kind of followed up on this, see how far it can get. From there, my uncle used to work at the bank. So he said, do you know what, there's an opportunity at the bank here, entry level, as a personal banker. So you get to know all the areas. So I took him up on that opportunity, and it's probably there for about 3 years or so.
Yeah.
And the experience again from there was what's the word I'm looking for? Second to none. Yeah. It was dealing with the day-to-day customers, then into private banking. So you're seeing a whole different perspective, really, of how people value the money. And then once we got into the pandemic at this point, it was a case of, well, actually, these people want to do more with the money. They're asking me all these questions. How do I further develop myself? And that's when I sought out the LIBF financial advice course, completed that through lockdown, that would have been. And then had all this knowledge, but it was a case of, I can't actually advise anyone here. You're restricted to what you can say. And that then led to my next move was, okay, I need to now look for a role in financial advice. And so I'm currently with Cheetham Jackson, independent financial advisors, and they offer me so much support, which is it's invaluable in your early days, I've noticed. There's plenty of experts around. If I'm unsure on something, it's a case of, let me just go and check it with them. And they offer you a roadmap, really. And that's one thing I think is key when you're starting out, is if an employer can say, this is what you can expect, this is what your journey is going to look like, and being prepared for heavy regulation, everything you do is under the eye. That's one thing I'd definitely prepare for. And not that I wasn't aware of it, but actually experiencing it is a different thing. So yeah, I hope that answers that question ever so slightly there. On a tangent.
No, it definitely does. I do want to go on a slight tangent, because you mentioned starting off wanting to do football, and you, from what I've seen, to a certain extent, football is still in your life. You're a body double.
Yes, that's correct. So I still do, keep one foot in that door in that sense. So when I do have the time, I'll do body doubling. And what I mean by that, for example, is, I can speak on it now that it's out. Yeah. So let's say, I don't know, am I allowed to mention names of footballers?
Yeah, go for it.
So, for example, someone like Raheem Sterling, who I worked with a couple of months ago, they'll hire him for, let's say, an hour or two. Whatever they don't get in that time, that's where they put my body in. I'll do the footwork, the dribbling, the shooting, all that sort of stuff. So I've done that for many football clubs in the Northwest, Manchester United, City, Liverpool, the whole lot. So yeah, that's something to do in my spare time, which I thoroughly enjoy.
That is so interesting. And, you just never know what opportunities are out there for some people.
Yeah.
You don't have to completely give up on your childhood dreams, I guess.
Yeah. You get to speak to them as you feel like a footballer for that day. And then you can go back to your day-to-day job as well. So it's a nice variation. Really
so
nice.
going back to that day-to-day job, I think a lot of people kind of did, from the people that I've spoken to, a lot of them did kind of get their qualifications during lockdown. I think obviously having that downtime was very useful. Because you could focus. But what was that transition like, coming from being kind of unable to leave your house to being able to get out there and, hit the ground running?
To be honest, it was, my best description is I say it politely, is feeling like a dog on a leash. You just want to get out there and just go and experience, go and sit with a client, go and do what you would in a normal world, because obviously that got restricted given the conditions that were put out there. So you just feel like you're raring to go. One thing I also learned is you think just because obviously you've come out of all the exams, you've got this field of knowledge, but it turns out there's a web to it, and there's a lot of things you still don't know that you still have to go back and ask for more information on. So yeah, you're very excited, but I've definitely learned patience throughout this journey as well. That's massive.
Yeah. And what is that like? Obviously, you have all this practical knowledge, but using it is there ways that you've learned to adapt? How have you done that in terms of when you're face to face with clients?
So sorry, is that in terms of how have I? How
you've adapted what you've learned to actually apply it with your clients.
So one thing I've learned on that is we do a lot of role play. So before you get out and see clients, you're thoroughly prepped. We cover so many different scenarios. I mean, in part of my training with a previous employer, I did even virtual training. So you're seeing a client through a headset, you're practicing with your peers, your colleagues. So you feel almost ready to walk into that role. And again, if there's anything you are unsure of, which there will be, you phrase it in a way that it still looks competent and you're confident about what you're saying. You don't know everything, but I just want to check that. And just, again, you can cross check that with your peers. But that's how I prepared for it, basically. A lot of role play, just practice. That's all you can do until it feels somewhat second nature.
Yeah. Really. So you said that you use a headset, like actual VR?
Yeah, that was in a previous role. Yeah, so we had like a virtual reality. You put it over your head, and they call it the metaverse, I think.
Yeah,
and there'll be a client in there, and it already has pre-selected outcomes, which is interesting as well. So technology is frightening.
That is so cool. That is quite cool, actually. Being able to use those scenarios and not just have maybe your boss or someone being the client and acting like the client. You actually have that in that headset. That's so interesting. That's quite an innovative way to train.
Yeah.
I like that. So what has your experience been like working up north? I don't know if you've had that, is there a difference in clients up north versus maybe, down south?
That's a good question, because I know that down south get a perception of they're not as friendly in that sense, but everyone I've dealt with has been equally the same. I speak on that in a sense of my previous role in the bank. I had a portfolio of clients down south, and they were just as nice as welcoming as those up north, really. when someone comes on to into a meeting or has contacted you with a desire to achieve something, it kind of rules all that perception out, because they just want to achieve one thing, really. Is they've sought your expertise. And I mean, I'm from North naturally anyway. Maybe biased, but everyone's really friendly and up north, and it's home to me. So it's been okay.
So there's like that level of understanding as well. And what challenges would you say you've faced, when you've started out in this role, and whether that is maybe with clients or maybe other processes that you have to do after talking to those clients?
I would say the main thing I've learned is patience, is touching on patience. Again, it was just a case of I've got all this knowledge. I want to go out there and speak to everyone. But, from a compliance point of view, you've got, your fitness and propriety as well, making sure you go through that before you even are on board at the vetting stage. What else would I think of? Just making sure you're hitting the mandatories as well in a compliance point of view in an appointment. So you have to make sure you cover those points. What else would I say? Patience, because you think, okay, I've got, let's say, all these people I want to speak to. It's not as easy as the hardest part is getting bums on seats. And, your friends might say, oh, we're interested in doing something with you. But when that day comes, it may turn out, they've got the day-to-day jobs. It's not as easy as that. So resilience is another one then in that sense. So you have to be resilient. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. But for me, I love the role, so it doesn't feel like work majority of the time. Got to be hardworking, but definitely I know that's something that goes without saying. But especially things that I've learned now with the suitability letters, it takes a lot of work making sure you cover all the points off. If there are any amendments that need making as well, just learn from it. So have a positive attitude in everything is what I'd probably like to add to that.
No, I think I get that. I think that applies to probably quite a lot of different roles, the challenges that you face and how you overcome them. So when it comes to marketing yourself, we're in a new era where there's so many different avenues of marketing yourself. And I actually saw something, it was quite a sassy little tweet from a notable figure in financial services. And he was saying that, not every financial advisor or financial planner needs to have a podcast or do a series or TikToks or any of those things. So it's not necessary for everyone to do that. And some people obviously took that like, wow, that's a very snarky thing to say. But also some people were like, that's a fair point. Not everyone's lane. But how would you say you would approach yourself when it comes to marketing yourself, whether it is to other advisors or to potential clients?
Yeah, that is an area this week, actually, I'm looking more into. I'm getting, again, two ends of the scale. Some people will say, oh, we don't really use social media, whereas a good friend of mine, 90% of his business comes from places like LinkedIn. So I am trying to now tap into more social media, put out there, what do I do for on a day-to-day? And putting yourself out there, because I'd say especially our generation, we are tapped into social media a lot more, and that's people are on the phones a lot more. So in my head, I'm like, okay, why not explore this avenue? Doesn't cost you anything as well, putting that
that's
out there.
True.
Rather than, potentially buying some leads. But I suppose for myself, I'm working on, let's say, some content, not in a financial promotion way, but maybe in an educational, and just putting out there maybe I could ask if I can put some testimonies out there until it gets to a point where people know what I do, who I am, and then it's a case of maybe the phone starts ringing through referrals. That's the way I'd like to try and go about my business in that sense. And I think that's my view on social media. I think it's very useful.
Yeah. I think it is as well, and I think obviously it's a big part of marketing yourself, whether it is your own personal brand or whether you're like me working for an organization. But also, I was wondering because we did kind of touch on you doing, the body double for footballing ads, and you talked about Raheem Sterling. I hope I said that right. I'm not a football person. I don't want to get flogged. But is that something that you might tap into, when you're at these shoots and stuff? You could be like, hey, I'm also, my day job is this, and I could really help you, because those are people, they're quite young, but they have a multitude of wealth that they might not know how to set themselves up responsibly for the future.
That's a good question. Again, that's something I'm working on. I've spoke about that a couple of weeks ago, actually, because, obviously the footballers themselves. It's how do you get comfortable to a point to tap into a conversation like that of what do you do and so on. But to expand on that, I had a chat already with some of the, let's say, like the directors there who were, doing the choreography, the videoing. These guys are all self-employed.
Right.
And it turns out quite a few of them are doing their own finances. They're not, seeking like an accountant or, so again, that's an area that's potentially unexplored, but it's something that I'd like to probably sit down, make a plan. And it's another opportunity really to put myself out there, and it could be a referral through to the day-to-day job really, but it could be a very useful platform there. That's the best thing I can probably say on that.
Yeah. Is that something that you find yourself doing, outside of like when you're actually working and in work mode, when you're out there doing something personal for yourself? Do you always find yourself being like, oh, maybe I could be of help, or, maybe I could drop some gems to these people?
Yeah, that's another good point there. I also try and find the balance on it, because you can often find with all this knowledge, you just want to share it with everyone.
Yeah.
I try and, from what I've experienced and learned, I try and sit on the fence in that sense of, listen to a conversation and then they'll say, oh, what do you think of that? And then I can kind of add my kind of 2 pence to that in that sense, as opposed to, oh, I'm Daniel, I'm a financial advisor, this is what I do this. It seems a bit more in your face in that sense. But it's I think right time and place really for me to come in with that information. Same with family. I don't want to be in a position where, we're not going to invite Daniel around because he just keeps talking
about this one subject.
Yeah. So again, it's finding that fine line and getting a nice balance of the two. Really. Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong with imparting a little bit of wisdom sometimes. I think when I first started working in financial services, I was really on my family, because I think before, like, I used to work for a pensions brand, so I'd never thought about my pension. And then I started learning more and more about it. So then I started, bullying my family about their pensions. And my younger sister is actually self-employed as well. And if it wasn't for me, she would not have set aside and created her own personal pension. And she told me the other day, she was like, yeah, you've been talking to me about it for years. I would be stupid not to. And I was like, I'm so proud. I had some impact,
Yeah.
So I think, you never know what kind of impact you have from, just that I don't have the multitude of like knowledge that you have specifically, but just the little bits that I've gleaned, you can really help people.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think that's the best. And I guess that's where you're going with, trying to build more of a financial education platform, as opposed to being like, this is what I can do for you.
Yeah. Because also I've noticed throughout my journey in financial services, and especially now in financial advice, being able to, let's say like a pension, it can be so complex and it can have a lot of paperwork, but to us, it's just, we can understand it. put it in black and white terms and really simplify it for someone. So that sense of relief of, oh, I actually can retire in X amount of years, or, there's a bit more work. That feeling is it's what I do the job for as well. It's nice. I am a kind of a people pleaser in that sense. So the job marries up nicely.
Yeah. And would you say that that's a part of the skill set that you need as an advisor, being a people person, people pleaser?
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that, because people buy into people, really, is what I kind of go by. The trustworthy element to it as well, that you're going to do the right thing by that person and always having their best interest at heart. So again, that's just the person I am. And again, I think that's perfect for financial advice, and that's how, not to speak for everyone, I feel that's how we all should be. And yeah, it's the right ethics as well.
Yeah. So. Yeah, no, I think that's definitely important. And so what would you give, what advice would you give to someone who is in a similar position that you were when you were, working in a bank and considering, how can I make myself more useful? What advice would you give to that person?
Yeah, because I recall, like you said there, being in this position, I would read like the financial advisor to be section and think, right, okay, I'm still doing my qualifications. What do I need to do next? And just reading anything I could. But what would I advise? So when you kind of going, well, this is my experience when I was going through the qualification, you think, right, I need to get a job after this in this role. Just genuinely focus on that qualification. And then once I'd passed, it felt like all the opportunities and doors kind of open themselves, and it's which one suits you and what's going to help your development and what's going to make you feel more comfortable as well. So, yeah, I would focus on the qualification. And then I think the next stage for me really was, okay, well, I just thought, okay, am I just going to go into a job? But the hoops you need to go through so making sure, like I said, the vetting stage, going through the finances and your DBS, it can take a while when working with the FCA as well. So again, it's having the patience, and you need to be observed as well in your early days. So you'll have a manager coming on your meetings as well, making sure you're doing what you should be to be signed off. These are things that you don't really see when you're doing the qualification. You just think, right, I'm just going to go out there. So again, just patience with everything. Keep an open mind of just learn. And yeah, I keep gravitating towards patience because I just want to run, but then I've been taught, right, just slow things down and just enjoy it. Just genuinely enjoy it.
Yeah. So. No, I think patience is, like the saying says, it's a virtue, and it's a difficult one. I've had to grasp that the older that I've gotten, because I think maybe with our generation, maybe it's just like we've always had that instant gratification, True. And it can be difficult when you're like being told, pause, wait a second, just wait. And it's an important, attribute to have, to be able to be patient and not go crazy while you're waiting. But yeah, it was amazing talking to you, Daniel. Thank you for joining me on this podcast.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to In Conversation With. We do hope that you enjoyed it. Please do keep up to date with all our new releases via Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts from. You can also keep up to date with all our new content published on the Money Marketing website, as well as our print edition Money Marketing magazine. So make sure to subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next time.